It started as a way to kill an afternoon. The kind of grey Saturday that made everything feel muffled, where even the sound of traffic outside Eli's window seemed tired. Sam had come over with a bag of chips and his phone, already half bored, and dumped himself onto the carpet beside Eli's desk. "Dude, have you seen the new Street View thing? It's got like our whole neighborhood now." Eli didn't look up right away. He was halfway through scrolling an endless feed of short videos, the kind that blurred together until you forgot what you just watched. "What? The Google van finally made it here?" "Yeah, you can actually see my house. Even the dent in Dad's car." Eli spun his chair around and shrugged. "All right, let's see yours first." Sam pulled up the map, pinched and zoomed, until the blue outline roads filled the screen. There it was, their street, neat and quiet, the houses small and similar. They clicked on Sam's place first, the cracked driveway, the red bike dumped on the lawn. They laughed at how low-res Sam's face was, caught blurry and mid-blink, waving at the van. Then Eli typed his own address. The camera angle snapped to the corner of Maple and 7th. There it was, his house. Smaller than he'd expected. The paint was chipped under the windows, the front step slightly crooked. The image must have been taken months ago, maybe last spring. His mum's old blue car was still in the driveway. She'd sold it in July. "Yo, that's creepy," Sam said, grinning. "It's like time travel. Look at your curtains, still the old ones." Eli leaned closer. The curtains in the front window were pale green, drawn halfway shut, glowing faintly from the sunlight caught behind them. He zoomed in a little more. The reflection on the glass warped into soft distortions, trees, sky, the faint blur of the van. Then Sam said, "Wait, who's that?" Eli frowned. "Where?" "There." Behind the curtain, Sam pointed with a chip-greased finger. "Like, right there. Between the gap." Eli squinted. At first, it just looked like shadows. A darker shape in the middle of the curtain, where the folds met. But when he leaned closer, nose nearly touching the screen, he saw it. A suggestion of a figure. A head. Maybe shoulders. The faint impression of someone standing there, behind the glass, motionless. He felt something small and cold stir in his chest. "That's probably me," he said too quickly. "Or my dad. I don't know. They must have caught us that day." Sam grinned. "You don't look that tall, man." "Shut up." They laughed, but Eli kept looking. He clicked away, then clicked back again, like maybe it would change. The figure was still there, always still, half hidden by that gap in the curtain. After a while, Sam grew restless. He started looking up other places, their school, the park, that weird abandoned lot down the hill. They zoomed in on the graffiti, on random people frozen mid-stride. The world in Street View felt like a museum of moments. Everything alive, but stopped. When Sam finally left that evening, the house fell into silence. The low hum of Eli's computer was the only sound. He stared at the screen again, at his own house, within his own house. The figure behind the curtain seemed clearer now, like the light had shifted somehow. He couldn't make out a face. Just that same dark outline, its shape impossibly ordinary. Still, he felt it looking back. He sat there for a long time, long after the sun outside his real window began to fade, until his reflection merged with the shadow in the photograph. For a few days, Eli didn't think about it. Or rather, he told himself he didn't. By Monday, the weekend felt like it had been dissolved by routine. School mornings, bleary and grey, buses hissing at the curbs. Sam would find him by the lockers with that same stupid grin, talking about nothing. A new video game, a rumor about their history teacher, the usual filler that made the day pass faster. They didn't talk about the picture again. Eli almost brought it up once, when Sam mentioned the new Street View update schedule. Something about how Google had started refreshing the images in smaller areas more often. He stopped himself halfway through the sentence. It felt ridiculous to say there was someone in my window, especially when Sam would just laugh it off again. So he laughed instead. He learned how to do that easily enough. At lunch, the cafeteria lights buzzed faintly overhead, and he sat at their usual table with a half-eaten sandwich, listening to the noise around him without really hearing it. Everything was loud in a way that made him tired. The scraping of trays, the bursts of laughter, the echo of sneakers on linoleum. He glanced at Sam, who was trying to balance a milk carton on his head. It struck Eli suddenly how far away everything felt. That night, he went home to an empty house. His dad was still working late shifts, and the place had that hollow sound of somewhere that had been quiet too long. The air smelled faintly of dust and detergent. He walked past the window. The curtain hung still, pale green in the dimness. He hesitated for just a second, enough to notice how his own reflection didn't quite line up with where the shadow in the picture had stood. He told himself to stop. He was just seeing shapes in light. He made dinner, microwaved leftovers, watched half an episode of something and turned it off. When he went to bed, the faint glow from the streetlight fell through the curtain seam, making a narrow stripe across the carpet. It looked too much like a footprint, though it wasn't. By Thursday, he'd nearly forgotten. The week had a way of sanding down his thoughts. Classes blurred together. He started joking again. Sam was still his usual self, loud, restless, always looking for something to fill the boredom. On Friday afternoon, Sam leaned over his desk during study period and said, "They're doing another image pass this week, updating the whole blog." Eli froze mid-note. "What?" "Yeah, man. I saw it online. They're like testing faster refreshes. Probably you'll get a new picture of your place soon. Maybe the van's already been by." Eli managed to shrug. "Cool, I guess." Inside, something turned over like a stone. By the time the new image finally loaded, it was already late spring. It had been almost 2 months since Eli had last checked, though almost wasn't quite true. He'd tried to stay away. He'd even unbookmarked the page, deleted the history, told himself that he didn't care what a blurry picture of his house showed anymore. But he still thought about it sometimes, the same way you think about something you left unfinished. A quiet hum in the back of his head. It was a Thursday when he broke. The day had been grey and heavy, rain streaking down the classroom windows, and Sam hadn't come to school. Sick, apparently. Without him, the day felt longer. The silences stretched wider. Eli went straight home after the final bell. He didn't even take his shoes off before sitting at his desk and opening the laptop. His fingers hovered over the keys for a long moment. He typed Google Maps anyway. The map opened to a default city view, and he zoomed in, block by block, road by road, until he reached his street. The blue line of the street view route shimmered faintly. He clicked. The transition between the old image and the new one was subtle. For a second, the screen flickered. The colors shifted. The lighting changed. The cars in the driveway disappeared. And there it was. His house again. The same angle. The same cracked sidewalk. The same window. Only this time, the curtain was drawn a little farther open. Not much, just a few inches, enough to show more of the dark interior. A shadowed corner, the edge of the couch. He leaned closer. The light from the monitor painted his face pale blue. The figure was still there, or at least he thought it was. It wasn't where it used to be. Before, it had been standing directly in front of the curtain. Now it seemed deeper in the room, half hidden behind the couch, the shape less distinct. He couldn't make out the details. Just a faint line of an arm, or maybe the fall of fabric. It might have been a trick of the lighting. It might have been nothing. He refreshed the page. The same image, the same shadow. He stared for a long time. The longer he looked, the more his eyes began to play tricks. Shapes forming and dissolving, the sense of something just on the edge of recognition. When his dad came home later that night, Eli had already closed the computer and gone to bed, pretending to sleep. Weeks passed again, maybe months. Time was starting to slide together. Eli told himself he'd stop checking the map. He even went a few days once without opening his laptop. But eventually, he'd give in again. Not to fear exactly, more like a kind of restless curiosity. He told himself he was just keeping track, just seeing how often they updated. But that wasn't really it. The newest image loaded on a Sunday morning, when the house was empty and silent, except for the low hum of the refrigerator. He clicked through the usual streets, barely noticing them now. The sky in the image was bright and washed out, a dull summer blue. A row of houses, a few cars parked crookedly on the curb, and then his street. The van had passed again. His house looked smaller for some reason, the shadows sharper. He zoomed in slowly, expecting to see nothing. The curtains were open wide now, the inside fully visible. The smudge on the glass was gone. Everything looked neat, clean, almost staged. But in the faint reflection of the window, something caught his eye. Behind the white curve of the street view van, something darker, a shape, indistinct, almost human. It could have been a shadow, or the reflection of a tree, or just a trick of the image compression. He leaned closer. The pixels broke apart. It was impossible to tell if it was even there at all. He stared long enough that the world beyond the screen seemed to fade away, until the hum of the fridge sounded like static, and the sunlight through the curtains seemed too bright. He clicked to the next frame, the camera's view moving a few feet forward. The figure wasn't visible anymore. He clicked back. Gone. Back again. Still gone. It was as if the image had changed when he looked away. That night, Eli couldn't stop seeing reflections. When he brushed his teeth, the bathroom mirror felt a fraction too deep, like it wasn't quite reflecting the same movement. When he turned off the lights in his room, his laptop screen, black and blank, showed the faint outline of the window behind him. He stared at it until his eyes ached, waiting for something to move. Nothing did. The next Street View update came a week later. This time, the reflection in the window wasn't faint. It was sharp. Too sharp. In the mirrored glass of his own house, behind the van, behind the faint shadow of the trees, there was a figure standing on the street, closer to the curb than before, head tilted slightly. The figure's outline was broken, but its posture, that was clear. It looked like someone watching. He stared for a long time. His hand moved to close the tab, but he didn't. He zoomed in instead, until the pixels swam into nothing. When he finally turned off the laptop, the faint glow of the screen reflected against the window again. And for a second, he thought he saw two silhouettes instead of one. The next update came without warning. Eli was at his desk when the screen blinked. A subtle flicker, like a heartbeat caught between frames. The blue line of the street view route shimmered faintly. He clicked. His house looked the same, almost exactly the same, except the curtain was gone. The window was fully uncovered now, sunlight spilling across the couch, the carpet, the faint gleam of the TV screen in the background. The room was clear, sharp, too sharp. He could see everything inside, every detail of his own life frozen there, uncomfortably precise. A cup on the coffee table, a jacket draped over the chair, and in the glass, the reflection he couldn't stop looking at. A silhouette, inside the house, near the window, facing. Inside. Only the back of it was visible. Broad shoulders, dark hair. Still. Eli's throat felt dry. He leaned closer to the monitor, the blue-white glow bleaching his face. He looked over his shoulder. The real curtain was closed, but beneath the hem, faintly visible in the dim light, two shadows pressed against the floor, feet perfectly still. He didn't move. He didn't breathe. The computer screen flickered again, a subtle blink, as if buffering. When it settled, the silhouette was gone. The room was empty. It had been 3 months since anyone had seen Eli. People said a lot of things. That he'd run away, that he'd gone to stay with his dad somewhere else, that he just needed time. Sam didn't know what to believe anymore. He hadn't gone to Eli's house since it happened. He'd walked by once from across the street, but it looked abandoned. The windows were all shut tight, the air heavy around it. Still, sometimes, late at night, Sam found himself opening the map again. He didn't know why. Maybe it was guilt, maybe curiosity, maybe both. Tonight, he typed Eli's address. The image loaded slowly, like it always did. Same street, same houses, same light. He zoomed in. The curtain was gone, the window wide open. Inside, the room was visible. The same couch, the same coffee table, the same faint reflection of sunlight on the floor. And in the window, two silhouettes stood side by side. Still, silent. Sam's stomach dropped. He stared for a long time before his hand finally found the mouse. He closed the tab quickly, the way you might swat at a fly. The sound of his own breathing filled the room. He leaned back, rubbed his eyes. The computer screen flickered, just once. He didn't notice that the browser was still open behind the closed tab, that the image had updated. Street View now showed a new location. The van parked further down the block, in front of Sam's house. The curtain in his living room window, just slightly more open than before.